That is it, guys. The official timing is over, and that is a wrap for 2021 Formula One preseason testing in Bahrain. And a very, very interesting 3 days of testing indeed. And I think that this final day was one for us fans that is probably the most intriguing. But let's go through the final classification on day 3 and what was a very exciting PM session here. So in P1, we have the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, who set his best time of a 1:28.9 and completed 64 laps here in this PM session, followed by a surprise, which really came as a surprise to many. Yuki Tsunoda of the AlphaTauri, a 1:29.0, only 9/100th of a second off of Max Verstappen's time. He completed 91 laps this morning. So AlphaTauri continuing their strong run of form and reliability, and completing well north over 100 laps today between the two drivers. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, third place with a 1:29.6. He's 0.6 off the pace, was able to complete 79 laps. Like I said before, a very strong day for Ferrari, much better than day 1 and day 2, and Sainz seems a lot more comfortable in the car than he did in the first 2 days of running. And then another surprise, we got young versus old in terms of Tsunoda in second, and they were exchanging laps with Kimi Räikkönen, who was P1 for a short little while, but he finishes the day in fourth and has done a mega stint for Alfa Romeo on his own today, completing 165 laps of running in the AM and the PM session, so very, very smooth there. Lewis Hamilton in fifth, struggling a lot in this PM session. We had to wait an hour to see him out on the track, and when he did, was really never able to find the rhythm on any one of the tires, really. But when he came out in the last hour or so on the C4 and C5 prototype tires, Hamilton was struggling quite a bit, especially in turn 4 and in turn 15, where he had quite the spin once he got the power down on the W12. So he does not seem happy with the balance of the car. Seems like the car is understeering in some of the slower speed corners, and in the high speed corners, the rear end looks very twitchy, similar to that of the Red Bull last year. So that's something that we'll have to keep an eye out for. But definitely a surprise to see him down in fifth and not so happy with the performance. George Russell, a very solid run of form for Williams in these last 2 days, completing 158 laps, and he had a time good enough for a 1:30.1. Interestingly enough, only a tenth away from Lewis Hamilton ahead of him, a seat that he's looking out for in 2022. And we got Daniel Ricciardo in seventh, who had a very strong session with a 1:30.1 as well, completing 76 laps. McLaren, again, looking very good in both sessions today. Verstappen's Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez down in 8th place with a 1:30.1, 49 laps on the board in the AM session. Didn't really do any performance runs on the softer tires. That's still a very impressive number there, or excuse me, lap time for Sergio Perez, considering he did it in trickier conditions and also didn't do very much performance runs. Fernando Alonso in 9th with a 1:30.3, 78 laps on the board. Didn't get as much out of the performance runs as I would have expected versus somebody like Kimi Räikkönen or an AlphaTauri, but I still think a very solid session for Alpine, considering they got 78 laps on the board through Fernando Alonso. And then 10th place, rounding out the top 10, we got Ferrari's Charles Leclerc, who drove this morning with a 1:30.4, completing 80 laps, so putting the tally almost at 200 laps for Ferrari, just under that. And then rest of the order, we got Norris in 11th, Gasly in 12th, Esteban Ocon in 13th, Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher in 14th and 15th, Valtteri Bottas's Mercedes, who drove this morning, down in 16th place. And then rounding out the last two positions, the disappointing Aston Martin, who finished 17th and 18th with Vettel and Stroll, respectively. Sebastian Vettel had some sort of an engine or turbo issue, some sort of loss of boost pressure, which saw him miss pretty much the last 2 hours of the PM session and really didn't get any much meaningful running. He completed 56 laps, mainly longer run type performances. We didn't really see him do many performance runs and quali simulations on the softer tire, so definitely very disappointing for Aston Martin. We would have expected to see a lot more from them, considering the hype that they came in with, but let's wait and see what they can give us when we go racing here in Bahrain again in a few short weeks' time. So I think I'll stick around for another 5 or 10 minutes or so just to see what the Twitterverse is saying, and if there are any last-minute updates as well. So here's just a tweet from Chris Medlin. Now the session is over. Maybe Kimi thought it was, but Sainz was on a flyer on soft tires and the track was still green. Yeah, so I think he was referring to the fact that the session was still going. Some of the cars were still actually trying to go on. So this is what the. Okay, I did not see this in the final couple minutes. So they came very, very close together. I believe this looks like to be turn 10. But so I think Sainz thought the session was over or something, but almost had an accident at the very end of day 3. So that was that. And here we go. So let's play this for you. We got an update here from Sebastian Vettel of Aston Martin about his day 3 running. So let's hear what he has to say for Aston Martin.
All right, hi everyone. So as you can hear, I don't know if you can hear, but I hope you do. Cars are still running, and we are not in the car. So obviously not exactly the week we were hoping for. That's the truth. We would have aimed, or we had aimed for more laps and more mileage. But it is what it is. I think. Nevertheless, we still got a decent amount of track time. The guys have been pushing a lot, so thanks to the mechanics in particular. They had a very busy couple of days. We still got good track data. For me, it's very useful to just be in the car. So it will be a steep learning curve, also the first couple of races. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to get back in the car. I had lots of fun when I was on track, and I'm sure there's more to come. So stay with us.
So there you go. Those are the comments from the 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel. And I think you guys can tell he's a slightly disappointed tone in his voice just from the fact that he couldn't get out onto the track. And he brings up a good point himself, which is the fact that I think it will probably take him a couple of races to try and get to the level that he'd like to be at. So we might see him kind of being out raced or maybe even out qualified by Lance Stroll early on, just because Stroll's a lot more familiar with the car. And also had a lot more running here so far in the 3 days of testing. So I just showed you guys the Raikkonen and Carlos Sainz incident, and immediately, pretty much like 3 minutes later, F1 Portrayed by Top Gear account on Twitter, which I've probably plugged 100 times during these live streams, they come out with this. So let's see what they got.
Since we were doing serious research, we'd agreed that there would be no childish racing.
Don't hit Hammond! I've hit Hammond!
Since we were doing...
Oh, man. I'll never get tired of that account. So I feel like F1 Portrayed by Top Gear could do a better summary of winter testing than I ever could. But there you go. Here's an update from Williams Racing. Yeah, they completed 158 laps today. P6 overall. Very, very good 2 days here for Williams, which really makes me wonder why they had to put Roy Nissany in the car all day on Friday. I think that they could have got some even more meaningful running, whether it's George Russell or Nicholas Latifi, if they would have split the day on Friday. But nonetheless, they completed a ton of laps between Saturday and Sunday, and it seems like the new package that they got on the car is really working for them well so far. So very impressive job there from Williams, and a very positive as well as we head back into the season, considering the last couple of years for them. All right, just scrolling through here just to see if we got anything new. Okay, so here's some tech analysis for you guys if you guys are interested. I know I'm not very familiar with all the tech stuff, so I can't provide you with the excellent analysis from somebody like Craig Scarborough, but he says, so a peek at the McLaren-Mercedes cooling package. There looks to be small intercooler down behind the radiator. This is similar to the old Renault power unit layout, which tended to have 2 small intercoolers, 1 in each side pod. So let's see if I can give you guys the bigger picture here. So just below, you can see Ricardo's helmet here of the cooling package of the Mercedes power unit. So very interesting stuff. I always like to read up tweets here from Craig Scarborough. He always posts, little tech analysis that he catches while he's watching the streams or while he's watching testing. But yeah, a very interesting day. Just to wrap things up in a summary, I think one of the more impressive teams for sure in testing has been McLaren. I think they've just been steady in terms of their lap count and their lap times as well. So I'm looking very forward to what McLaren can do in terms of battling for that third in the championship. Obviously, Red Bull, I think, has also impressed me equally just because of the fact that they started off on the front foot right away, and we know that Red Bull always struggle with getting off to a quick start during F1 seasons. So the fact that they've started off very strongly with Verstappen finishing P1 in 2 sessions this season and putting in some very solid and quick laps on the medium tire and the race pace looks solid as well. And just the biggest difference too, just that Red Bull visually just looks like it's a lot more put together and more well balanced for the drivers this season than it was in 2020, which is great news. We haven't seen too many spins or anything like that from Max Verstappen like we did last year in Barcelona testing. So I'm very much looking forward to what they can do. Some surprises for me that go positive and negative surprises, I think obviously would be a positive surprise is Alpine. I was very surprised at the pace of Alpine and just how they were able to go through all 3 days without any real issues. I mentioned this a couple hours ago that Renault usually always has some sort of engine or electrical gremlins during preseason testing, but they really sorted all of that out. And as a team that haven't really made massive adjustments or spent any major tokens like we've seen other teams do, for example, like McLaren or AlphaTauri, they've kind of kept the same car for the most part and just made some small adjustments to their package. And it seems like it's working very well. Fernando Alonso is right up at the pace with Esteban Ocon as well. Esteban Ocon seems extremely excited and happy with the new Alpine car, which is great. So Alpine has been a positive surprise for me. AlphaTauri, another positive surprise. I knew that they were going to be strong, and I remember doing the video on AlphaTauri teammates where Pierre Gasly said that the team had found some interesting things in terms of when they were developing the car in the off-season, and he said that we're going to have to confirm them during testing. Well, if I'm looking at the timing sheets of the last 3 days and the one in particular today that I'm looking at right now, I would say that whatever those things were that they found, they seem to confirm it because Yuki Tsunoda is finished today second place and only less than a tenth behind Max Verstappen. And if you look at Pierre Gasly even before in the AM session, completing 76 laps with a 130.8, which was a very solid day as well. So whatever they found, it seems like they've been able to confirm themselves. So AlphaTauri have impressed me. And then, of course, the one negative or thing that surprised me is Aston Martin, of course. I expected them to kind of have more of a testing like McLaren did, which is very strong, a lot of running and showing some good performance, but they just haven't been able to pull it together. Lance Stroll's side of the garage has been much smoother and much more efficient. He's gotten a lot of good long runs out there and some more performance runs, but his teammate Vettel, unfortunately, has not been able to do that same type of program, and you can see and hear in his voice that he is slightly disappointed by that, so he'll have a lot of work to do. And then a little bit of a surprise as well is Mercedes. I'm surprised that Mercedes have struggled as much, and I'm surprised that Lewis Hamilton in particular in the 3 days of testing hasn't really been able to find a comfort zone with the W12. I expected at the very least after the struggles on Friday that by Sunday we'd be seeing the old Hamilton of 2020, but we necessarily didn't see that as he struggled a lot even on the softer compound of tires. So I think that we're going to have to wait until qualifying in Bahrain to see if these struggles are legit. But I imagine that Mercedes are probably going to go back to the drawing board and make some adjustments. So don't be surprised if you see some new packages on the W12 when the cars roll out for FP1 in Bahrain. So let's do one final refresh of Twitter, and then we will be signing off for this year of testing. So if we got, I don't know if we got any Australian fans in the chat, but I'm just seeing this now that Daniel Ricciardo had a message to his Australian fans, so let's listen in.
Shout out to the Aussie fans. Today was meant to be the Aussie Grand Prix, but yeah, hang tight. We'll be back in November to do it properly, and yeah, look forward to all getting back there. Shout.
I completely didn't even realize that normally we would be starting the season right now in Melbourne. So that was a nice little touch there from Daniel Ricciardo, who had another good day. Okay, great. I'm glad that Lights Out F1 blog posted this before we signed off. So here's a look at which teams have completed the most laps of 2021 testing. So AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo ended F1 testing having completed the most laps. And surprisingly, the least amount of laps, the team who are at the top of the pile the last 3 seasons, which of course was Mercedes. So this is a very, very interesting graphic. And the fact that you'd consider basically 2 teams that were at the back end of the midfield battle ended up completing the most laps in this shortened 3 days of testing. Alfa Romeo with 422 and AlphaTauri tying them as well with 422. And this is what I'm saying of why this thing might be optimistic with Mercedes struggles, because Mercedes, even last year, remember when they struggled with some power unit gremlins, they were still able to complete a healthy amount of laps and at least be, top 3 in terms of lap count. And unfortunately this year, they're all the way down at the bottom. as well as one of the customer teams, Aston Martin, 314 laps, which is quite disappointing. So when you look at the rivals, the main rivals, Red Bull was able to do 369. Again, like I said before, Alpine's strong showing of 396 laps was very, very good. And another, shout out to Haas as well for completing 394 laps. I know that we're not expecting much from them this season, but I think completing almost 400 laps between the two rookies is excellent for them. And they'll probably be very, very happy that they were able to do that much running in this 3 days, considering that they are 2 of 3 rookies on the grid this season. And then Williams, 373 laps as well, which is very impressive. It's actually it's Mercedes the least at 304, and then Aston second last. So very interesting graphic there. Very, very interesting to look how that looks. And I don't think that I would have predicted that, but it gives us reasons to be slightly optimistic for the start of the 2021 season. So I'm very much looking forward to Bahrain FP1 and then obviously qualifying as well. As you can see here, Kimi Räikkönen here just ending his day, going back into the Alfa Romeo garage. Kimi Räikkönen looks like he's still got it, and Alfa Romeo seems like they made a step forward from last season. And just also on that lap count, guys, too, it also shows the positives of the Ferrari power unit being reliable, and they have seemed to claw back a little bit of performance from obviously what was a awful 2020 in terms of horsepower. Well, that's going to do it for me. I hope you guys have a awesome Sunday. The rest of your day hopefully is good, and the weeks to come. We are less than 2 weeks away from the start of the 2021 season, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Thank you very much, everybody, for the super chats. I recognize the names of all the guys who were in the chat for the last 3 days, so thank you very much. We're very grateful, and we hope that you can join us again soon on the Backmarkers F1 Show channel. Until then, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.